Hi, welcome to PySimpleGUI, the complete course, Lesson 5, Part 2, Input Text Element and Other Input Elements. There are a total of 10 input elements in PySimpleGUI. Input text, checkbox, radio, slider, spinner, option menu, combo, list box, multi-line, and menu. All of these will generate input events. And the first one we're going to go through is input text. And they look like this. You have a box that you can input stuff into. And first thing I want to cover here, I did not cover in text, is that this one, along with a great number of them, has shortcuts in input text and input. You'll see me use input a lot. Text you can also type as txt or just t. And the reason I did that, beyond that I'm just lazy, is one of the things that is really nice about PySimpleGUI is the code is compact. And if you write input text a lot in your window, then it gets wordy, and people reading the code already know what input text is, or input, or in, or t. You get used to it real quick when you're reading it. So you'll likely see me using input or txt for text. For all inputs, they generate input events. And we'll see how that works in just a moment. Let me go through the parameters. Default text is anything that you want to show up as in the field to begin with. Size is the size in characters and rows. So this is 20 characters wide by 1 row tall. Let me keep these on top. Disabled, you can start elements in a disabled state like this. All of the input elements, including buttons, can be turned off, and I'll show you how to do that after the window is shown as well, programmatically. Auto size text, that will should auto size. You know, I'm not sure why that's here. I'll have to look that up. Password character is, if this is a password entry, you don't want to have the characters typed show up. So they will show up as whatever you put in this field. You can have it be blanks, so that it shows up as blanks. You can have it be, I think, none, and it will still, no. I don't think you can have it just be nulls, so nothing shows up. I'll check that. Justification is how you want the thing lined up, left, right, or center within the field. Background color, I need to check that too. Background color is the, we'll see here, it's the color of the input field itself. Then the next thing that comes is text color, of course. You can have it look like this. Font we covered in the text element. Not going to go through that. Tooltips we covered as well. It shows up if you hover your cursor over. Oops, let's see. Let me run it. If you hover your cursor over the field, it should show up. Maybe it doesn't work for text inputs. I think it doesn't work for text inputs. I'll check that. Do not clear. This came up as a question today. Normally when you hit read or something on something that submits the window, it clears the fields. And the reason for that is I think that's the normal thing that you would assume an input field would do after a read. Otherwise, if this is a form and you do that and it keeps it, you're gonna, the next time through, you'll have to erase whatever's there. So it's an option. So if you don't want it to clear, you simply set it to true, and when I hit read, the default will stay there. Otherwise, it would have cleared. Keys. We'll cover that here in a second. Focus is whether or not you want this field to have the initial focus. And at the moment, it's set for, let me change this where we don't. Did you know you can comment things out in the middle of a call like this, by the way? You can. You notice how the cursor here is flashing on this field. It's because the default focus is set. And the default focus means choose the first input field and put the caret there. If I turned off default focus, then it wouldn't show up there. You see there's no cursor. If I wanted the focus to be on the second field, I set the focus on this one and the cursor shows up there. Padding we covered in the last one. It's the amount of space between these things. Let's talk about return values. Return values can come in two forms. They are either a list, which this will be a list. This program says read the event and values and do a pop-up. So at the moment, when we read it, we get a list. It's default, it's the first thing that's in there, and then two empty items. If I put something in these, it will show up in the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And it clears them, as you can see. If any one of these elements in your window has a key, like this text, then your return values for the window are a dictionary. So and if your input fields do not have a key, then it is numbered starting at 0. So these don't have keys. This does. So this forces it into a dictionary. These don't have keys, so they're 0, 1, and 2. And when we look at it coming back, this, you may not be able to read it, but these are curly braces. It's a dictionary, 0, 1, and 2. And what's clever, by the way, about that numbering scheme is that if it's a dictionary, you would reference the first value that comes back as, if it's a list, it would be 0, right? So if we say SG pop-up of value sub 0. If it's a dictionary, and you can still use this same thing as if it's a list, because the key is numbered at 0. So this is actually acting as a key into the dictionary, and you see the pop-up comes back as the first one. I hope that made sense. Let's do it where this, we set a key on this, input 1, and value sub 0 will still work. It's just it'll be this second field. So here, this is my input, and we say here, this is field 2. When we read, the pop-up said value sub 0, it's field 2 this time. And when we look at the dictionary, the first key in the dictionary, it matches this key. And then the other two are numbered as we had said, 0, 1. The last thing I want to cover here with input text is update. And this is another situation where the key is important. And what we're going to do here is update. Let me go get that update field or call real quick, what it looks like. What we're going to do is we're going to update this second field. We're going to say the key is under our input 2, and what you do to update a field is you call find element and you send it the key. So let's say we want to find input field 2, and that gives us back this input element right here. And once we have that, we can call update on it. We can change things about it. And for an input text, there are two fields for update. There's value and disabled. So let's say that we're going to take whatever was passed back from input 1, so values sub input 1, and we're going to put that there in input 2. So whatever is in input 1, we will put in input 2. So let's run our form. Let's say we do 1, 2, 3, 4. When we hit read, it'll put it there in input 2. Another thing you can do here is we can disable, I think it's disabled. We can disable fields. So it'll put default there and also disable that field. And many of the elements have a disabled parameter on their update. So just remember, updates, you will often see them in code chained together like this, where instead of saying element equals, you will just do a find and an update together. This is called chaining in Python. I use it here and I use it here. So we get an element and we use that as if it was a variable, and we call the update method on that class variable. And I think that's all there is to cover for input text element. Thank you for watching.